What's up, night owls? Welcome back to the channel. Tonight, we're clocking in for the graveyard shift. But trust me, you're gonna wish you'd called in sick. You know, most people are tucked safely in their beds when the clock strikes midnight. But for those who work the night shift, the darkness brings something else entirely. Empty hallways, flickering lights, and the unsettling feeling that you're not quite as alone as you should be. Tonight, I've got 3 true night shift horror stories from workers who experience things that still haunt them to this day. A hospital nurse who encounters something she can't explain. A security guard who discovers he's not the only one patrolling the building. And a gas station clerk who serves a customer that shouldn't exist. These aren't urban legends. These are real experiences from real people whose night shifts turned into living nightmares. So grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and whatever you do, don't work the night shift alone after listening to this. Let's clock in. Rachel had been nursing for 7 years when she transferred to the night shift at St. Michael's Hospital. The pay was better, and she needed the money for student loans. She wasn't afraid of working nights. She was a professional who had seen plenty of death and tragedy. But St. Michael's was different. The hospital was built in the 1940s, with thick walls and long corridors that seemed endless. During the day it buzzed with activity, but at night it transformed into something else. The hallways became caverns of shadows. The fluorescent lights flickered constantly, and the silence was so complete that every small sound echoed like a gunshot. Rachel worked the 4th floor medical surgical unit. Most of her patients were elderly, stable at night, requiring only periodic checks. She'd spend her shifts doing paperwork at the nurse's station and making rounds every couple of hours. Her first week passed quietly enough. During her second week, things started feeling wrong. It began on a Wednesday night around 2 in the morning. Rachel was updating patient charts when she heard footsteps coming from the East Wing. Heavy footsteps like someone wearing boots. But the East Wing only had 3 patients, all of them bedridden and unable to walk. Rachel walked toward the sound. As she entered the dimly lit corridor, the footsteps stopped. She called out but got no response. She checked all 3 patients. Mrs. Chun in room 421 was asleep. Mr. Rodriguez in 423 was sleeping peacefully. Mrs. Thompson in 425 was unconscious from a massive stroke. None of them could have been walking around. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, both Rachel and her colleague David heard the footsteps. They investigated together but found nothing. All patients were in their beds. The supply closets were empty. No one was there. Over the next week, the footsteps became a regular occurrence, always between 2 and 3 in the morning, always in the East Wing. The other night shift nurses knew about it. Some joked about the ghost of St. Michael's. Others refused to go to the East Wing alone. 3 weeks into her rotation, everything changed. It was a quiet Saturday night with only 12 patients on the floor. Rachel was doing her midnight rounds, saving the East Wing for last as she always did. When she checked on Mrs. Chun, the elderly woman was awake and staring at the ceiling. "The man was here again," Mrs. Chun said weakly. Rachel paused while checking the 4 line. "What man?" "The tall man. He comes every night. Stands at the end of my bed and watches me." Rachel forced a reassuring smile. "There's no man here, Mrs. Chun. Just the nurses." "I know what I see," the old woman insisted. "Tall man. Long coat. He never says anything. Just watches." Rachel finished quickly and moved to the next room. When she reached Mrs. Thompson's room, she stopped in the doorway. The lights were off as they should be, but standing at the end of the bed was the silhouette of a tall man in what looked like a long coat. "Excuse me," Rachel whispered. "You can't be in here." The figure didn't move or acknowledge her at all. Rachel fumbled for the light switch and flipped it on. The room flooded with harsh light. The figure was gone. The room was empty except for Mrs. Thompson in her bed. There was nowhere to hide. No closet. The bathroom was empty. The window was closed and locked, and Rachel had been standing in the doorway the entire time. Rachel backed out slowly and returned to the nurse's station, trembling. She didn't tell David what she'd seen. How could she explain a man who vanished into thin air? But Mrs. Thompson died that night at exactly 3:15. Her heart monitor flatlined, and despite CPR attempts, she was gone. As Rachel helped prepare the body, she couldn't stop thinking about what Mrs. Chun had said. The tall man visits room 425 every night. Rachel went back to Mrs. Chun. "The tall man you've been seeing," Rachel said quietly. "What does he look like?" Mrs. Chun turned her head. "Tall, very tall, long dark coat, but his face, I can never see his face. It's like there's nothing there, just shadow." "Has he been to any other rooms?" Mrs. Chun nodded slowly. "He visits room 425 every night. Sometimes he stays for hours." Rachel felt her blood freeze. Room 425 was Mrs. Thompson's room, the woman who had just died. Rachel asked about room 417, where a patient had died 2 weeks earlier. Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. "Yes, he was there every night for a week. Then the patient died." Rachel realized what she was dealing with. This figure appeared to patients who were about to die, some kind of harbinger of death. But that was impossible. The next night, Rachel returned to work with dread. At 2:30 in the morning, she heard the footsteps again, and this time she saw him. He walked past the nurse's station slowly, not 20 feet away. A tall man in a long dark coat. His movements were too smooth, too gliding. When Rachel tried to look at his face, there was nothing. Just shadow, just emptiness. He turned into the east wing and disappeared into room 421, Mrs. Chen's room. Rachel and David rushed to check on Mrs. Chen. The old woman was awake, tears streaming down her face. "He's here," she whispered. "He's standing right there." She pointed to the foot of her bed. Rachel saw nothing, but she knew what it meant. Mrs. Chun died 3 days later. Rachel put in her transfer request that morning. She couldn't work that floor anymore. The hospital approved it immediately. Apparently Rachel wasn't the first nurse to request a transfer from the 4th floor. There had been many others over the years, but the hospital kept it quiet. Rachel works on the 2nd floor now. It's brighter and busier there. She hasn't seen the tall man since transferring. But sometimes late at night, when she's alone at the nurse's station, she hears footsteps in the distance. Heavy footsteps, and she wonders if he's still down there in the east wing of the 4th floor, making his nightly rounds, visiting the dying, standing at the foot of their beds, waiting patiently to escort them to whatever comes next. Marcus had worked security for almost a decade. Shopping malls, apartment complexes, corporate offices, even a casino. Not much rattled him anymore. When he got hired for night shift at Blackwood Industrial Park, he thought it would be easy money. Just him, an empty office complex, and a whole lot of nothing. Blackwood Industrial Park was on the outskirts of town, a collection of warehouses and office buildings. Marcus was assigned to Building 7, which housed small businesses that all cleared out by 6 in the evening. His shift ran from 10 at night until 6 in the morning. 8 hours of watching cameras and doing hourly patrols. Simple, boring, perfect. The security office was on the ground floor with a wall of monitors showing camera feeds. The building had 6 floors. Floors 2 through 5 held offices. The 6th floor was empty, under renovation. Marcus's routine was straightforward. Every hour he'd patrol the building, check all the doors, make sure nothing was disturbed, then return to the office. The first week went without incident. Miles of empty corridors. Hundreds of locked doors. Nothing unusual. During his second week, he noticed something odd. On his 3 a.m. patrol of the 4th floor, he found an office door slightly ajar. Hammond and Associates Accounting. He checked that door an hour earlier and it had been locked. He was certain of it. He pushed the door open. The office was dark and empty. Nothing disturbed. The door lock wasn't damaged. Strange, but not impossible. Maybe the cleaning crew forgot to lock it. Marcus locked it securely and continued his patrol. But on his 4 a.m. patrol, the door was open again. Just slightly ajar, exactly like before. Marcus returned to the security office and pulled up the camera feed for the 4th floor hallway. He rewound to just after his last patrol and watched. The hallway was empty. Then at 3:47, the Hammond and Associates door slowly swung open. But there was no one there. The door just opened on its own. Marcus told himself it must be air pressure from the HVAC system. It was the only explanation that made sense. But the next night, 3 doors were open on the 4th floor. All doors he'd checked and locked. The camera footage showed the same thing. Empty hallways, then doors slowly opening by themselves. Marcus called his supervisor Jerry, who told him to stop being paranoid. "Old building," Jerry said. "Doors don't always latch properly." But it wasn't just the doors anymore. On his 2 a.m. patrol, Marcus heard footsteps behind him. He spun around. The hallway was empty. He stood listening. The footsteps stopped. He continued walking faster. The footsteps matched his pace, always a few yards behind. Every time he stopped and turned, they stopped too. The hallway was always empty. Marcus ran back to the security office and checked all the camera feeds. Empty. The entire building was empty except for him. But as he watched the 4th floor feed, he saw something impossible. There on the monitor, walking down the hallway he'd just been in, was a figure. A man in a dark security uniform doing a patrol. Just like Marcus. But Marcus was supposed to be alone. He watched as the figure walked methodically down the hallway, checking doors exactly as Marcus had done. When the figure reached the end, he turned the corner and disappeared. Marcus switched to the next camera. The hallway was empty. The figure had vanished. Marcus called Jerry again. "There's someone else in the building. Another security guard. I saw him on the cameras." Jerry insisted no one else was scheduled and reluctantly agreed to send police. 2 officers arrived and did a complete sweep. Every floor, every room. They found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No evidence of anyone except Marcus. After the officers left, Marcus rewound the footage and watched it again. This time he paid attention to details. The figure wore a uniform identical to Marcus's. Same height, same build, same walk, because it looked exactly like Marcus. He was watching himself on the camera. But he'd been in the security office when this was recorded. So who or what was that? Marcus didn't do any more patrols that night. He watched the monitors until 6 a.m. Every so often he'd catch a glimpse of the figure on the cameras. Always on the 4th floor. Always doing a patrol. Always looking exactly like him. When his replacement arrived, Marcus told him everything. The day shift guard, Tom, listened with a strange expression. "The 4th floor, huh?" Tom said. "You've heard about this before," Marcus said. Tom nodded. "About 15 years ago, there was a night security guard named David Marsh. He fell down the stairwell on the 4th floor, broke his neck, died instantly. People see him?" Marcus asked. "People see something," Tom said. "A figure in a security uniform. Always on the 4th floor. But here's the weird part. The figure doesn't always look like David. It looks like whoever the current night shift guard is. Like it takes on the appearance of whoever's working nights." Marcus felt sick. He'd been watching himself walk the halls. A copy of himself. A ghost. Or a premonition? How did David fall? Marcus asked. Tom's expression darkened. No one knows. The stairwell door was found open and his body was at the bottom. Some think he was chasing something. Others think he saw something that scared him and ran. But the cameras didn't show anything unusual. Marcus resigned that morning. He wasn't going to spend another night watching a version of himself walk the hallways, knowing that something on the 4th floor was waiting. The company tried to keep him with offers of transfers and raises, but Marcus refused. He got a new job at a shopping mall, day shift only. But sometimes late at night when he's alone, Marcus catches his reflection in a dark window, and for just a second, the reflection moves independently, takes a step, turns its head, continues on a patrol that never ends. And Marcus wonders if part of him is still there in Building 7, walking the 4th floor, trapped in an eternal night shift. Amy had worked at the Quick Stop gas station for 3 years on the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The night shift differential made it worthwhile. The Quick Stop was on Route 47, 30 miles outside Springfield, surrounded by farmland and forest. During the day, it did decent business, but at night, especially after 1 a.m., hours could pass without a customer. Amy didn't mind the quiet. She'd bring her laptop, read, or scroll through her phone. The store was well lit with good security cameras, and Amy kept the door locked after midnight, only opening for customers. She felt safe. The regular customer started appearing about 6 months into Amy's employment. It was a Tuesday night around 2:30 in the morning. Amy heard a car pull up to the pump. An old sedan from the 90s, dark blue or black. A man got out and started pumping gas. Nothing unusual. A few minutes later, the door chimed. A man in his 50s or 60s walked in wearing an old-fashioned brown suit, the kind from the 70s. His hair was neatly combed, his shoes polished. He looked dressed for church at 2:30 in the morning. He walked to the coffee station, poured a large cup with cream and sugar, came to the counter and pulled out his wallet. "Just the coffee," he said pleasantly, handing her a $5 bill. Amy rang it up, gave him change, and he left. She watched on the monitor as he drove away heading north on Route 47. The interaction was completely normal, but the man came back the next night. Same time, same car, same brown suit, same routine. Coffee, $5 bill, heading north. And the night after that, for 2 weeks straight, every night Amy worked, the man appeared at exactly 2:30. He never spoke beyond pleasantries, never bought anything except coffee, always paid with a $5 bill, always drove north. Amy found it strange but not threatening. Some people had weird routines. Maybe he was a trucker with an unusual schedule. Then one night Amy mentioned him to Dave, the day shift guy. Dave's face went pale. "What did you say?" Amy described her regular customer. Dave pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. A man in a brown suit standing in front of the Quick Stop. "Is this him?" "Yeah, that's him," Amy said. "Who is he?" Dave's hands shook. "Amy, that's Robert Hensley. He used to come here every night for years. Always ordered coffee. Always at 2:30. Everyone knew him. So he's a long-time regular. What's the problem?" "The problem is that Robert Hensley died 4 years ago." Amy felt the floor drop. "What?"
Car accident.
5 miles north of here. His car went off the road around 3 in the morning. They found him the next day. He'd been dead for hours. I went to his funeral. That's not possible. I just saw him last night. That night when the man walked in at 2:30, Amy looked at him carefully. It was definitely the same man from Dave's photo. "Mr. Hensley?" she said. The man paused and turned slowly. His pleasant demeanor flickered, revealing something sad and lost underneath. "You know my name. Someone told me about you. Mr. Hensley looked at her for a long moment, then went back to pouring his coffee. His movements seemed slower now. He brought the coffee to the counter. How much? $2.50. He handed her a $5 bill. As Amy took it, her fingers touched his hand. His skin was ice cold. Not cool, but absolutely freezing, like touching a corpse. Amy jerked back. The $5 bill was old and worn with an outdated design. She looked up, but Mr. Hensley was already walking to the door. "Wait," Amy called. "Why do you come here every night?" Mr. Hensley stopped without turning around. "Because I'm going home. I'm always going home." He walked out, got in his car, and drove north. Amy researched Robert Hensley online. His obituary said he'd lived on Millbrook Road, 10 miles north of the quick stop. He'd been driving home from his night shift job when he crashed. He'd stopped for coffee like always, then continued north. But he never made it. Now every night his ghost made the same journey. Stopped for coffee, drove north, trying to get home, never making it. Amy kept working the shift. She stopped being afraid. She looked forward to his visits in a strange way. He was polite and quiet. He just wanted his coffee. He just wanted to go home. One night, about a month later, Amy decided to tell him the truth. When Mr. Hensley came in, she asked, "Mr. Hensley, do you know what happened to you?" He looked sad. "I know I should be home. My wife is waiting, but I can never get there. Every night I try. Every night something happens. I lose time. I wake up here again, getting my coffee." Amy's eyes filled with tears. "Mr. Hensley, you're not going to make it home. Not this way. You had an accident 4 years ago. You died." Mr. Hensley stared at her. Slowly his expression changed. Confusion faded, replaced by understanding, then pain. "I died. I'm dead."
I'm sorry.
"My wife. I don't know, but you can't keep doing this. You're stuck. You need to let go." He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "I just wanted to go home." "I know, but you're already home. You just have to realize it." Mr. Hensley nodded slowly. He picked up his coffee and looked at Amy one last time. "Thank you for telling me the truth." Then he faded, dissolved like mist. The coffee cup clattered to the floor empty. Robert Hensley was gone. Amy stood alone, staring at the spot where he'd been. She felt sad for Robert Hensley, trapped for 4 years trying to get home. Sad for his wife who'd grieved, but also relieved. She'd helped him. She'd set him free. Robert Hensley never appeared again. Amy kept working nights for another year before moving on. But every night at 2:30 she'd look at the door, half expecting to see him in his brown suit. He never came, and Amy liked to think it was because he'd finally made it home. So there you have it, folks. 3 true night shift horror stories that prove the graveyard shift is called that for a reason. A hospital nurse who encounters a harbinger of death stalking the 4th floor. A security guard who discovers he's not the only one patrolling the building, or maybe he's patrolling 2 places at once. And a gas station clerk who serves a customer who's been dead for years, trapped in an endless loop. These stories remind us that when the rest of the world is sleeping, those who work through the night aren't always alone. Sometimes the darkness brings visitors. Sometimes the dead refuse to rest. And sometimes reality itself becomes a little less reliable when the clock strikes 3 a.m. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more true horror stories. Drop a comment below and let me know. Have you ever worked the night shift and experienced something you can't explain? I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, night owls, stay safe out there. And remember, some shifts never end.